Okay, great. All right.
8 o'clock. Should we start straight away?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Women in Tech breakfast. Today we're talking about psychologically sustainable remote work. I'm Emilia, and this is Joanna, and this is hosted by Wunderdog. So it's 2020 and remote work is here to stay. As we all know, at what everyone is thinking right now, at least when it comes to the HR management team leads, is that how our work environments can meet the needs of the employees in these never seen before circumstances. And so on, how are we able to build sustainable working life for the people and for the future? And me and Joanna are here to share some insights when it comes to you considering when building the future work life.
Yes. So also on behalf of myself, a very warm welcome to this session, and thanks for getting up so early together with us. We are very excited about this morning's topic. So a little bit also about Wunderdog in short. We are a software and design agency established in 2014 in Helsinki. Today we have two offices. One, the headquarters here in Helsinki, and then also an office in Berlin, established in 2018. We work together with a lot of different companies, different size companies, both from startups to bigger corporations, to build sustainable software solutions for them. We also have a good supportive ecosystem together with us, so we are able to also work with DevOps solutions, maintenance, design, and so on, which we have found to really create a good and broad offering.
Then we could let screen share.
Good. Then we'll go into screen share now, so that you'll have access to, or so that you'll see our presentation that we put together for this. Great.
Yes.
We went
shortly about this one. So we will take maximum 1 hour of your time, 45 minutes for the presentation and 15 minutes for the questions. And if you want to share your insights as well, you got beforehand the instructions how to send the questions. It goes like that. We use the YouTube channel, YouTube chat, and answer the questions after the session. In mobile, the chat is below the video, and in this desktop view is the right side of the video. And our agenda looks like following. We will first introduce ourselves shortly, then Alma will, Joanna, sorry, it's her dog name, will share her story and insights about how to handle the crisis and what would have she like to know beforehand. Then we will share some psychological aspects when it comes to the rebuilding your remote work structures. And in the end, we would like to share even some more innovative tips and tricks from us and other companies, and then summarize the morning with the key takeaways. So shortly, who are we? Yes, so like described, my name is Emilia. I joined the Helsinki Wunderdog pack in June, and I'm head of the people operations here at Wunderdog. I have been working a couple of years in the tech industry, and also I'm social psychologist when it comes to my education. This has been a particularly interesting period from a social psychologist point of view. It's like the time when the old structures and behavior patterns shake, and the amount of uncertainty and changes is very mentally heavy at the same time. and we are physically more separated and trying to create new ways of feeling relatedness, for example, in virtual way. And yeah, this is Joanna.
Yes, I am. I am Joanna. I have been working for Wunderdog since early 2017. I have a background in law and business, and currently I work at the Berlin office. I thought, without further ado, maybe about myself, I'd jump right into to my own story of how we managed kind of this new situation in Berlin, because that's also what kind of inspired today's topic when I started reflecting on what I had learned. So, exactly. This is my team in Berlin. This is from our Christmas party at the end of 2019. And I took this picture, captured it on Instagram with the great "Looking Bright 2020." And obviously, little did I know what 2020 was going to bring. But when I moved to Berlin in at the end of 2018, that was my very first team lead position, leadership position that I got, and so obviously, as I'm sure also many others, managing a team through crisis might, for some, never happen, or maybe some actually have experience in that. I didn't have experience in, managing, supporting people in such an unprecedented time from before. So, therefore, now, it was, first of all, you had to obviously adjust yourself to this new situation, everything that it was bringing along in terms of remote work, lockdowns, and such, which was both on a personal level, new, unfamiliar. Then also, when you are in this team lead position, you also need to think about your team, how to support them, how also to steer your company through these times, and think about how to really rebuild the processes and your organization afterwards. So now, in the aftermath of Q2, I then started thinking about, okay, what did I learn that I could take with me now when we are more in a phase where we think about the future again, and how that's going to look like. So what I wish I would have known is prepare ahead. When the crisis comes, you don't really know that you're in an unprecedented situation. You just somehow find yourself there. But what is good to have, I found, would have been several kind of scenarios planned in my head. For example, I think many brick and mortar companies did it very well, that just, iterated and took their companies online. I think this is a very good example of such things. Kind of how to have different scenarios in your head, and also communicate, because really something that I realized was that the more trust your people, they can take information, they also want information, so share that information. And don't only share it's going to be fine, because this doesn't really give people that much, but rather share, what's going to happen, these scenarios that you might have in your head and such, because that really brings also a certain certainty to the people that, okay, we might not know what's going to happen to tomorrow, but there is at least, an understanding of how, if A or B or C happens, how we might tackle those things. And more information gives more certainty. I also realized that don't diminish people's needs. maybe you thought, okay, I really need to start saving up those, coins on the bank account. Fair enough, that's great. Many companies had to. And then you have, a person who is like, yeah, but what about my free coffee? And this might feel really small to you, also completely fine. But many times, whatever stands behind the person's agony of not getting that free morning coffee might be just the simple fact that this is a routine. It was something that, kept them sort of on track, and now this is taken away. So it all of a sudden, maybe it wasn't actually that big of a deal, but it just all of a sudden starts feeling really big. And you have a lot of examples of this, but this is really also something that I found that, to take into consideration that different people have different needs. So how do we then rebuild? So based on then what I had learned and reflected upon about what I had observed, with my people, with my team, I started thinking about, okay, so how do I take all of these things into consideration when rebuilding? And what I personally feel is that we are not going to be able to go back to the organizational structures that we had before, and I think everybody can agree to that. I think it's what Emilia also said, this poses a new kind of challenge for leaders in general in companies to figure out, well, how do we then rebuild our new organizational structures? Because also during the crisis, I think everybody realized, and we're also probably very grateful for the fact that their team was flexible, your customers were flexible. When you had a crying toddler in the camera beside you, that was all fine. When people weren't able to take vacation, everybody, leaned in and said, okay, let me, refrain from taking my vacation because it's not that big of a deal. But right now, when this starts more becoming a normal, the situation, we need to take that into consideration.
Sorry, just minor technicalities.
Good.
Please continue.
Exactly. So we are just taking all of these into consideration. And how do we then rebuild? We will, in the following, dive into more of it, like we will dive more deep into specific factors on things that we need to think about that a team needs. But first of all, I wanted to give you just this overview in order to hopefully now when, as I said, we dive more into technicalities, so to say, behind team structures, you also have this overview. This is an overview of foremost how to create virtual teams. I also do feel that they work well in this constellation with a kind of virtual on-site hybrid model, because I also believe that a lot of companies will have different models going forward. But what do we then start with? We start always with the people. We need to think about when creating teams, and again, Emilia will in the following go more deep into this, but what people do we have in our company? What skill sets do they possess? What cultural backgrounds do they come from? Who are they as people? And when we then think about also the outputs that eventually we want to have, how do we build a good team constellation to make sure how do we set up them for success to be able to deliver the desired outcomes? There are two aspects also to take into consideration in this whole picture when it comes to the people, or in addition to the people. it is that we have the social emotional processes, and we also have task processes. For the social emotional processes, these are basically the frame around the team. So the trust, psychological safety that we will also talk about belongs here. Cohesion within the team. So how well do they match each other? How do they form together this type of trust and psychological safety? And then we have the task processes, and these both to relate to each other. So how technical skills or technical processes, how do they, what tools have we given them so that they can perform well? We will also dive into a little bit more of just practical examples on this later on. How do they communicate? Do they need face-to-face every once in a while, or such things? And when we have the right people, we have set up them for success, we have built a good environment, and we also have good processes, then we should hope that we also have the outputs that we want. So this kind of constellation is then now what we're going to dive into more in the following.
Yes, thank you, Alma. Next I'm going to share more specifically some psychological aspects, what you can consider when building your remote work practices. And also feel free to share your best remote work practices in the YouTube chat, maybe especially those that are worth of keeping in the longer run. Something very basic for you might be very new or interesting to someone else. Yes, so good to know when rebuilding your structures. I will shortly represent you 3 basic psychological needs leaning towards Desi and Ryan's self-determination theory. Then I will talk a bit about psychological safety, of course, and then I will represent different motivational orientations of the employees, and then describe a bit what kind of environments are work environments supporting these psychological basic needs. And yes, so according to this self-determination theory, people have universal 3 basic psychological needs, and they need to be ongoingly satisfied for people to maintain optimal performance and well-being. And these needs are autonomy, relatedness, and competence. When it comes to autonomy, it refers to independence or freedom when it comes to your own actions. And this need for autonomy is not satisfied when we are doing something we are told to do. So my personal hypothesis and experience also tells that self-management skills during these times are particularly tested when we work from home. And then relatedness refers to feeling of connectedness to others. When we feel that we are isolated and and irrelevant in relation to other people, our need for relatedness is not satisfied. And this is what all companies, HR and management at least, are thinking right now. I mean, how to support their feeling of relatedness when we work from homes. It's the greatest challenge when working remotely. And then the feeling of competence refers to ability to do something successfully. And this need for competence can be easily diminished if the challenges are too difficult or negative feedback is overwhelming. And the question is, how can we ensure that the people get enough support when they're working from home? And how to support people feeling competent in home as well. And next, people have same psychological needs, but a bit different motivational orientations. And these motivational orientations are considered relatively permanent aspects of personality. And so each of these orientation is existing in us in some degree, but some of them are more dominant than the others. For example, if person or your colleague is high in autonomy orientation, person is orientated towards self-initiation, seeking interesting and challenging activities, taking bigger responsibility of him or herself. But then if person is high in controlled orientation, the person can be more leaning towards structures and deadlines, directive of others, and rewards, for example. And then if person is high in impersonal orientation, people might think that achievements are largely matter of luck or fate, and they may not have the sense that they have ability to affect the outcome. And these people tend to be unmotivated and wanting things to be as they always were. And this all comes to the fact that we are all orientated motivationally differently and in our own home offices, and this gives you tools to understand the motivational aspect of your colleagues as well. So some are more orientated towards structures and some more towards seeking challenges by themselves, for example. Yes, and then about psychological safety. It's something that has been discussed a lot. It's clear probably to everyone that psychological safety is something to foster when you're thinking about best working teams. It can be described as a condition in which human beings feel included, safe to learn, safe to contribute, and safe to challenge the status quo. And all this without the fear of being embarrassed or marginalized or punished in somehow. And the keys for psychological safety are trust, feeling of safety, and interpersonal risk taking. So, for example, you're not afraid of being humiliated in the Zoom meeting when you have one. And in psychologically safe teams, all the members feel accepted and respected, and individuals can be focusing more on collective goals, problem prevention rather than protecting themselves. And level of trust has a positive impact, for example, the intention to continue sharing knowledge and information, for example, in your communication channels. And here are some very concrete tips for you how to promote psychological safety in everyday working life, inspired by HUMAP in LinkedIn, actually. Example is everyday online meetings. So, one very small thing, which all the companies do not do, I know it, open your video camera to get more human touch. You can also speak in an empathic way, share emotions via words and emojis. You can try to build interaction to your meetings and make different ways of commenting and participating possible. And here to use some innovativeness, is it even an English word? But yeah, pay special attention to your own and others' non-verbal reactions. And one tip is also to close your own video to be able to focus on others more. Yeah, and then shortly about the work environments, supporting these three basic psychological needs I mentioned and described before. Now these needs need to be supported remotely as well. Currently these work environments are not that physical, but more relying on virtual communication tools, as we all know. So work environments supporting autonomy are opposite for controlled environments. For example, at Wunderdog, our culture is built so that people are encouraged to try without any permissions. There are no example of supervisors to ask permission from. Yesterday, someone started maybe some podcast tips channel, for example, to share the best ideas in there with others. Then work environment supporting autonomy encourages you to self-determination. You can, example, decide what time of the day you work and so on. And work environment supporting autonomy respects employees' point of views and emotions. One example was from Smartly that they created an app for virtual handshaking when it was not possible to clap for people speaking in weekly meetings. So then they are they're respecting a lot of their employees and their speaking in the meetings. Work environment supporting autonomy offers opportunities to choose from as well. Yes, working environment supporting relatedness then. In these kind of environments, work environments which support these basic psychological needs, you are involved to notice and take care of the other people. We, for example, use a lot of Slack emojis in our communication channels to do so. And probably was Cybercom, not sure, but for example, they provided 1 working hour to do some sports, and people shared afterwards what they have been doing. So this creates the feeling of relatedness, for example. Working environments supporting relatedness, there you can trust the colleague is there for you when needed. Yesterday evening we were 10 o'clock here preparing this Women in Tech breakfast, and I totally trusted that my colleagues are here for me back then, many hours ago. And work environment supporting relatedness, you give your time voluntarily to others, and then you also express empathy towards others. And I think all the companies are thinking about or arranging lots and lots virtual ways to spend time together. So I think there we need to really be innovative, that people want to attend to those in the long run as well. And then third one, work environment supporting competence, which was the third basic psychological need for us. These kind of environments provide structure. For example, we have this kind of weekly meeting where you can get the most new information to navigate yourself, where are we going and what we are doing. Work environment supporting competence, set clear expectations and set goals jointly in a realistic way. These kind of environments offer suitable challenges, not too easy, not too difficult for people. And also these kind of environments encourages to give clear and relevant feedback. When it comes to the feedback, for example, our teams have retros remotely as well. In these retrospectives, the teams go through takeaways from the projects and where the team has succeeded and what is there to learn. So that kind of feedback sessions also went remotely working. But yeah, this was the overview of the environments supporting these 3 basic psychological needs. Then to the tips and tricks section.
Yes, exactly. Like we said in the beginning, we hope that you have shared your best practices also with us now there in the chat. because we'd obviously love to hear what you have found to be good. If we just dive into some tips and tricks that we found, is that obviously if we somehow a little bit remember this overview that we had in mind, different technical processes, obviously the ones that you want to choose should be always depending on the outcomes that you want to achieve and what your team needs and who you have in your team and their technical skills and so on. But especially for, let's say, teams to share, to have workshops, I know a lot of people use as Mural. I haven't personally used it, but I've just, I know a lot of people that have used that as a design tool. Miro is also one good one to just create roadmaps and such. And I actually tried Remo the first time a couple of days ago, and this is like a really cool platform that you can kind of create this conference center and move around different stands and chat with different people and also share workshop like settings, so sort of, paid on whiteboards and such. I found that very cool. I also, in general, find it very fantastic during these times how many great tools we have that are out there or popping up as well. And then if we go again back to this, well, how do we create, a good feedback culture, so psychological safety and such within our team? It is to listen, to be empathetic when we share our thoughts, especially if we share them on Slack, because eventually a written message is perceived differently by different people. But so just sharing with emojis, but also engaging and supporting others through comments. And yeah, when we work together, if there is something you want to show, share your screens with them, but also what we did in terms of just also work equipment at Wunderdog was that we sent home chairs and tables and such as well, so that you have a good working environment there. And what I also find good is that also creates a good psychological safe environment, is that before you start meetings, you check in, you exchange some small talk. Even in our Finnish culture, that's very good to share some updates about how you're feeling, what's going on, what's happening, because it makes you also more relatable. And eventually, again, I'm sure that many of you have read the Google studies and such about what really makes for successful teams now, again, when you restructure your processes and you think about who you want to have in your team and how you set it up to succeed. Also, this to be able to relate to the team members there really helps. So do share how you're doing with your team members. And just, yeah, also in terms of sharing, doing some virtual sports together. I think somebody had put together a cookbook and things like that. They are all tools to be better able to relate to your teammates. And also, I think, obviously now when going forward, there are, as I also mentioned in the beginning, companies that will have different models. Some teams will always be remote, but it is also shown that a lot of teams do benefit from at least meeting every once in a while. So if you only have the possibility, it has been also highly recommended that you try to, have some FaceTime. So renting a cottage, going on a ski trip, whenever this is again obviously safe, but just to make sure that you do also meet people face to face. because that really also forms a different type of relatedness to the people. And maybe let's see what we had here. So maybe if we just summarize some key takeaways also here, and then we discuss, or we continue the discussion about your tips that you shared. Let's see if do we have any tips?
Yeah. Should we go then before the key takeaways, or?
Yeah, let's actually do it like that.
Yeah, we can do it like that.
You can also open the YouTube live and see the chat history.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah, so some ideas for your toolbox. One question was, Alma, Miro, and what was the other tool you described? Remo, Mural in there, probably.
What did we have? Yes, Mural and Remo. So it really depends on what you are searching for in terms of what kind of workshops you want to build. But these are all three things that or three different type of programs that I have experience from. Great. Now I lost my track.
No worries. Yeah, Miro, and what was the other tool? Probably meaning about.
Yes.
Remo, yeah. One good practice in the beginning of this 6 months was informal coffee tea chats, global distributed team sharing what is the situation and how others are feeling, coping and supporting each other. Yeah, that's very, very good one. Also, we've had after works, coffee breaks, and it's kind of Seiska Visa virtually. And then more about thoughts when separating work and free time, when when working and living in the same space. And do we have any thoughts about that? Yeah, some ideas for sure. For example, if you walk before beginning to go to work and walk after the work, that you give yourself some kind of structure and clear routines. And for example, I live in a small apartment where is I separate still the space where I'm working and living otherwise, or sleeping. So I don't, for example, work from bed. But something very, very concrete in there, or small, maybe. Yeah, and then there was one thing I disagree to some extent on leader to shutting down their cameras to focus on others. For many, the camera is a scary thing, and I think leading by example is very important. What I definitely meant is that you just close the camera from yourself, not from the others, so that you just don't stare at your own face all the time. So maybe that was a bit misunderstanding. Then there is issue I've experienced to people not alone in creating a feeling of psychological safety in a team are the people who should be listening a webinar like this, but they are usually not interested.
Yeah.
Any tips of getting these people interested and engaged?
This is a very, very good one. I think that this is a little bit what I think we touched upon when we said that, or let me rephrase, I'd rather put it like this. When you think about what the outcome should be and the team you need to kind of put together, and obviously I understand that it might sometimes be challenging to find the right people for the team and such, but preferably when you build teams, you should consider the skill sets that these people have that you put into the team. So for example, do you in your team have people that have some kind of an understanding already of how to support others to really build that trust and in this psychological safety? Now, if you look at the Google study, for example, they did say that a good psychological safety happens then when people effortlessly talk more or less the same amount and such. But personally, from an experience, this can be quite challenging when you have a lot of because in your team you still need people with different skill sets, and not everybody is going to be, a super skilled backend developer with also leadership skills, or a product owner with an amazing, something else. It's not necessarily going to be so that everybody has that, but I think it's good to still to consider in the team constellation that you do emphasize kind of skill sets, and if not, then you also, as a company, you support in providing training. But yeah, so think about really then when you structure again for the future and organizational, you structure your organization again. Is there something that, for example, in terms of training, that you can support people in getting the skill sets if you feel there is a lack of them, but also kind of when you put together teams that you try to make sure that you find people with the right skill sets that they can also support the whole team in eventually creating a good setup.
Yeah, one comment also to the psychological safety and how to make people interested about that. Hanna said that we brought some experts to team meetings to talk about these kind of things. Often those people think that they don't have time for soft things like this, so matter of prioritization. You just take these experts to your team meetings, and now you're gonna listen this. And then one thing is also leading by example, I think, and support somehow, for example, this, that you open your cameras and creating the safe space, so maybe others are following you after that, if you're in for example, leading position. And then there is do you see Alma as well? The constant video meetings can be exhausting, especially for introverted people. I think there should be also acceptance that there are times when people don't want to have their video on. Yeah, I cannot disagree with that if they don't want to, and it's not like only way to create psychological safety, for sure, that you keep your video on. I think it's just like getting a bit more humane contacts when you don't see each other, for example, in a half a year. It's like creates a distance. But yeah,
but also to add to that, I think that again here it's very important to communicate, so that if people understand, if you start off by saying, hey guys, great to be here today, I'm tired, I don't want to have it on, but I am here, to listen, to support, give my input, then that's also, it already gives a better understanding for you not wanting to have the camera on, and people will understand you better. So I think that just to kind of state why not is can actually also be a very good just way of going about it.
Yeah, true. Sometimes it's so, somebody commented, sometimes it's okay, but for some it's always off, and that can be disturbing for the rest of the team. Seeing your reaction is important. Thank you for commenting. One of the difficulties for me is that it's difficult to find time when you can put your comments. I sometimes end up interrupting or talking over other people. Yeah, that's something.
And I think that this is, again, if we sorry, again, now I do a lot of references to the Google study, but this is the study that, by the way, goes under the name of Team Aristoteles, where they studied like 150 teams, and they had a comment to this exact thing, that a good psychological safety where people respect each other would preferably be a setting where people get to talk the same amount. So I understand that this is very difficult, but then I am wondering whether or not there would be a possibility for you to have a discussion with your team and say, how do we structure our ways of working now so that we are all able to really listen to each other, so that everybody gets time to comment. And I think there, it really depends again on your team structure, but if you voice this, maybe you have, you agree on some tools that you try in the beginning, everybody only speaks 2 minutes, or, whatever works. But this is really also something that I think can really deteriorate the psychological safety in that way, if people start having these feelings that, why should I comment? It doesn't matter anyway because nobody's listening. And then you are not getting the maximum out of your team.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I like the idea that you share the time when you're talking, like everybody gets 2 minutes, or like we did, put your questions beforehand and then you go them through together later on and discuss about those. Just an innovative idea. Then there is one very handy tool to stop working and move to free time, is having 10 minutes meditation or mindfulness exercise. Yeah, for sure. That's something I have tried at least. Apps for the Headspace, Yoga, a Down Dog, or are our recommendations from our marketing. Thanks, Vilma. In overall, it's like a bit that if there were not an established team in place before the crisis, it's too late to fix that thing, and the tricks mentioned here are not working that well.
Or maybe I completely see it, but then the kind of question, is there a possibility for you now to think about this as a time when you can reorganize your team? Is there like those possibilities at all? Because it's true that if you didn't have an organizational structure from before, then maybe it can indeed be difficult then to apply these things that we are now talking about. But maybe you don't want to give up, and you'd rather say, okay, well, now this is our team, this is our people, this is what we want to establish. Is there now a way for us to restructure ourselves, to take into consideration the tools that, for example, were mentioned here, to support that environment that we need to achieve? I don't know how your organization exactly looks like, but I do think that some processes in all organizations are very important, whether or not your team is completely remote or you're face-to-face. But that in itself, to have structures that you work around, it just simply helps productivity and helps people feel well, and ultimately helps the team achieve their goals.
Yeah, I would like to think that it's never too late as well.
Exactly.
But of course, it's a more difficult. But in this world we're living, we need to be really like innovative, and that's why I wanted to also share these tips from other companies and how we're like doing stuff remotely and virtually. So maybe those are those practices you can use as well. And yeah, never too late. But difficult, of course. Then there is a question about how about elderly people who find it difficult to use modern remote tools. And there was a reply, possibly assigning a personal support person for those people. I used to act as one to an elderly team member to help her with challenges with new tools, rewarding both of us. Yeah, that's one nice idea.
Yeah, I also have a friend who works in an environment where this was quite, or where this was very relevant, and I think they had a training for those that felt they needed it. So again, see what people need, be open to what they need, and then figure out best practices, for example, in terms of training.
Yeah, and then there is, I feel that the regular morning meetings every morning have brought the team together even more. Sometimes it's only 15 minutes. Then we're asked to share the Google study link.
Yes, we will. I am going to share it in the chat. In the chat for you.
While Joanna is searching that, I read a comment. I worked while 15 years old was home with me. I needed to cut my office hours so that I am also with him. It was surprising how difficult that was to someone to understand. Yeah, working life balance. Not all the companies support it in the same way, for sure. But yeah, if some tip you would like to consider to arrange at your workplace, we for example have this Pilke nursing, like sick childcare nursing, that if you want to support somehow the work-life balance with the families, you can consider that kind of service to offer your employees. There is a comment also, fixed feeling that how good, bad employee and mother you are. Other hand, it was connecting experience with those who have also kids and found new friends from organization. Oh, that's nice.
That's great.
Yeah, I can completely relate. I feel this pandemic and the restrictions on schooling and childcare has really created a divide between people who have young children and who don't. Yeah, I think companies like being able to support the work-life balance really are really respected right now. Thanks Wunderdog for underpinning how important self-management skills are in remote work. I work with different teams and we have never been asked for self-management workshops as much as now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is really, I also think a very interesting topic in general, because I think the whole, the self-management, for some it comes so easily, and for some it's so much harder. So again, this I think is also kind of a challenge for companies on how they are going to make sure that that they find the right ways to support those that might have also more challenges with this. What I, by the way, also wanted to say as a comment for this is that I have a friend who in her workplace, when this pandemic started, they made this survey that they sent out to all employees asking, what do you need, basically, and then, how are you feeling, what do you need, how can we support you. And this I also found to be like a practical thing, because it can be really difficult to, or let's say it's very hard to know how to support if you don't know what people need support with. And you also, especially if, you're a leader and you're trying just to figure out, how to support a bigger group, or how to now, take your company through the crisis and such, you might easily also overlook some people's needs. And therefore, I think, for example, such a survey tool can be really useful, because hopefully people would then really have the courage to speak up in those, so you can kind of catch ideas or feelings rather that you maybe wouldn't have been able to see otherwise, or to catch.
Yeah. Yeah, and still commenting the self-management skills, yeah, and the like workshops and training asked for that. Also in my previous workplace and here we have like provided training by occupational psychologist to like give a training regarding these issues. And then also one comment, what has been surprising is that some men have families also who did not share anything about their personal lives before. I think in some companies, people are sharing nowadays more their personal lives. But yeah, thank you for active discussion. Should we go still through the key takeaways before shutting the cameras and continue our days?
Yes, let's do that. Let's move to the key takeaways. Let's see. Great. So obviously, we also hope that that this was a good session for you, and maybe your key takeaways are not the same as the ones that we picked out now, but the ones that we picked out was that when in an unprecedented situation like this, remember open communication, share information, and don't diminish other people's needs, and be ready to be flexible and find in order to find like the best suitable solution that works for your company. Teams, selecting still a compatible team with enough skill sets, also setting expectations for the team, having the right tools to form this psychological safety and a good working environment, and structuring that leads to good performance. And then people have the three basic psychological needs. You have autonomy, its relatedness, and its competence. And it's good to take all of these considerations into account when building remote work practices. So all in all, I guess we hope that we shared something useful.
Yeah.
And what can we say? Bring it on, 2021.
Yeah,
we are prepared.
Yeah, for sure. But thank you spending the morning with us, and yeah, hope you have a great day and rest of the week. I think we are gonna end this now.
Exactly. Also, obviously, follow Wunderdog on Instagram. It's Wunderdog Official, or on LinkedIn. We will be sharing some more cool things also on the topic of leadership in general, and women leadership, and maybe some other more best practices if we come up with any more. So yeah, thanks. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.